The Witcher is a incredible franchise that spans multiple books and very good games. I actually personally got into The Witcher by playing The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and I have the complete edition. And honestly, like it all across the board is a 10 out of 10 type of game. It's a fantastic RPG, and it just made me really like the franchise. Learning and booking up on so many other different things because I generally was interested in the lore and the story itself from what was given to me from The Witcher 3. And upon hearing that they were going to make a TV show, I seen seasons 1 and 2, and then of course I was going to watch Netflix's season 3 part 1. Sadly enough, it happens to be Henry Cavill's last little roundup with the crew for the Witcher TV show, but still wanted to see it, and I did, and I finally sat through and watched all of it. The only thing that I can say is that
it was boring, Huey.
The series has had difficulties trying to actually make itself get an identity. More than anything, you can see different elements in which it just tries too damn hard to do one thing over another thing, or basically waste so much time in its past iterations, making up for mistakes that were made in its previous incarnations. Much like how in season 2, they had a linear story structure, considering that in season 1, it was all over the place and it was fucking stupid and kind of hard to comprehend what was going on. It was okay. Like, when it was over with, you got it, but for the most part, it was still fucking ridiculous. You had the difference in clothes and the aesthetics of how everything looked, when in one it was like they was doing more stuff to try and shoehorn in diversity, even though that was a major criticism people had against the series, because of the fact that even though they were shoehorning in diversity, the shit really doesn't work, considering that different people are from different places, they have different accents and stuff like that, and then it's typically all based around the what is it? I was about to say Dutch, not Dutch, and the Polish, yeah, the Polish stuff that The Witcher actually comes from. Now, it has never been an amazing show.
What?
It never has been. With it being something that's following not the main streamline of books, but instead the side stories, so they can implement Yennefer, Vangerberg more than anything. It has always had this feeling attached to it, because you can just tell when they're constantly trying to fit in and push some crap that generally you wouldn't be interested in, because the far more interesting subject matter, which would be Geralt, was always pushed to the wayside, even though the series is called The Witcher. And you find yourself more so often than not interested in what happens with The Witcher.
He's out of line, but he's right.
So season 3 happened to have the misgivings of basically not only being surrounded by a bunch of controversy, but also being the last thing in which Henry Cavill was going to be in. So they spread out how they were going to release it instead of one whole junk. Instead, they gave it, they chopped it up. So you get a part 1 now and then a part 2 in a little bit. And it just ain't good. It's so unbelievably boring. And full disclosure, I can tell this series wants to be Game of Thrones so goddamn badly.
Angry young man.
It is disturbing how badly it wants to be Game of Thrones now, and it's not. It really isn't. This series kind of built itself off the merit of this white dude who goes around going, fighting monsters, and that's all you have to give us. That's all you have to give us. In fact, one of the few parts of the series that actually was generally interesting was when Geralt was by himself fighting monsters, and then he went to a freaking, what was it, like a damn, I'm like forgetting my weird, not lore, but like mythical creature shit. And it was this chick that was like a druid and a werewolf that he helped a long time ago, and that was a far more interesting concept than what else they had going on with Ciri and Yennefer, which was just boring. Again, just so unbelievably boring because you got two unlikable characters doing unlikable character shit in a story that just, for whatever reason, keeps trying to force them to be the center of the attention when they're so fucking unlikable.
Hey, nobody's perfect.
This shit shouldn't have been hard to do, but it was. And it's like, just copy from the books. That's all you have to do. But they keep making up stuff, changing stuff. Hell, there's a fucking gay scene with Yes, what is it like? Yeah, Yasmin. I just know him as Dandelion. I like Dandelion better for a name. I don't know why I like him more, but I just I do. Yeah, was they the gay scene with him, and it was like, what the fuck is the point of this? And like, I was like, I had to sit there and look at it while watching it, and I was just wondering. I was like, what is the point of this? I was like, this holds no purpose whatsoever. And I was like, because it's not doing anything, it's not helping anything, and even if you was to have some type of conclusion later on within the second part of the third season, for right now, this is pointless. So this could have been ushered in as a flashback if you were to actually have this matter later on. But for right now, this is very much unnecessary. But that generally was the entire consensus behind the show itself, which was what made it so unbelievably boring. Like I said, you had basically Yennefer and Ciri be the main characters of this season, while in the first season, the main character was Yennefer. Second season, the main character was Ciri. And now in the third season, the main character is both Ciri and Yennefer. Yet the show is called The Witcher.
I'm not sexist. Being sexist is wrong. Yeah. And being wrong is for women.
I cannot stress how bad a show actually has to be where you try to subvert everyone with multitude of side characters, different incidents that are going on, political jargon, backbiting, and twists and turns being done in terms of like, you know, hey, this person was talking about this, and it led to that, and it led to this, and it led to that. We're all looking for this girl, yet at the same time, we got political infighting going on at the same time. Again, why they so desperately want to be Game of Thrones, I do not know. But you have that, and essentially it's just uninteresting. There's nothing going on that makes you actually care because it doesn't truly involve the main character. They're talking about Ciri, who's important to Geralt. True. But at the same time, nothing is going on that generally makes you interested in any of the other characters that happen to be talking about Ciri. There were a multitude of characters that popped up that apparently dealt with I don't know what. And I was wondering the entire time, were they on the previous season? Were they important? Did they do something last time? I don't know. And then I didn't care. Yet again, the only part that I actually truly enjoyed was when Geralt was by himself and it didn't involve none of this shit. So, more than anything, and it's like, yeah, I got into the Witcher series because of the video game. True. But at the same time, the series and what happens in the video games were something that was generally interesting, but you were focused on Geralt. You could have easily had this stuff kind of focus around or deal with the political aspects or the warring factions and things like that all happening while still keeping a general intrigue in terms of what's happening with Geralt, while seeing the world building work for you, while having all that other stuff happen around it. This shit happens in like One Piece all the time. And then the original Witcher book series actually did that well. Like it actually was able to compensate for that by keeping that intrigue and then functioning that way, which again leads me to beg the question, why didn't you just follow the original book series instead of trying to shoehorn in a side series with like a little bit of the main book series here and there? You have the rights to all of them. This doesn't make any sense.
Sounds to me like someone's got a case of the spostas.
Not only that, but then they changed how frequent events and concepts happen from the series as a whole in order to facilitate for the show, which again just seems to be a Netflix thing rather than anything that happens to be coherent when it comes to an adaptation. They just screw up shit. I don't know why. They just screw up shit. They put these shows in the hands of showrunners who typically don't like this subject matter and they don't like what it is that they're talking about, and then they happen to just destroy it. And then it's presented to you as different, and for whatever reason, you have to sit there and take it when you shouldn't. It's slop. They're putting slop in front of you. You don't need to eat the slop. it's okay to tell them no. So I don't like this. It even how this part one ended was something that was just unbelievably pretentious. But then again, the very last episode of the part one of the season 3 was incredibly pretentious. Seriously, you have a whole episode where they're singing a song that says all is not what they seem, and then you basically pull a fucking Ocean's 11 lame ass trick to where they're just constantly going back and re-showing everything, but you're seeing it from different angles and perspectives, so that means it's not all what you seem. And then at the very end, the main characters who thought they had everything on lock, turns out that they got duped, and at the last minute, oh boy, just so it was so unbelievably pretentious because it was predictable as hell and so stupid. Oh god, it hurt to watch. It really did hurt to watch because I couldn't even muster up the strength to finish it all in one go. I had to stop and look at something else because I was like, I'm so unbelievably bored. I don't care. You have all these other characters going around talking and bringing up stuff and mentioning things that just honestly I completely forgot about, because the only aspect of the series that was worth a damn or even mattered in terms of following as a subject matter was what was going on with Geralt. And so now that we're not even dealing with him, it's like you finally got Ciri with him, you finally have all this stuff going on, but most of the problems that were brought up basically from the last season, where it was Yennefer trying to kill Ciri when she's supposed to be a mother figure to her, and just different aesthetics and stuff like that that they had going on. Hell, what was it like? Trisha's hair, and it's like in this season they had it as big and as red as they could possibly make it, but it's like you still look weird and you're not what Trish is supposed to be. And it's like, and now you're even less involved in the story. So when they have you on scene with Geralt and supposedly it's going to show some type of tension between the fact that she likes Geralt, yet she can't be with Geralt because he likes Yennefer, it's non-existent, because it's like you only show up on like 2 episodes. And on one of those episodes, it's not with Geralt. So what is this? It's so bad. But you have all of that functioning. You have all of that going for it. And then again, it's just, like I said, you have all these other characters plotting, thinking, plotting and backbiting and just making all these schemes and whatnot. And then at the very end of it all, it just doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Hell, what was it like on season 2? They had the whole elf thing and then they killed all those babies, and it was like, yeah, that was a crazy ass scene, but for the most part, the elves didn't do anything after that. Hell, you had a guy kill one of the elves and it was like supposed to show loyalty to the king. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, this just feels so Game of Thronesy. But at the same time, I don't know who this is. The elf that he killed wasn't a likable character, so I didn't care about him dying. And then the guy who did it, I was like, I can't even remember what the fuck he was on. And I was like, oh, then when I saw a flashback, I was like, oh, so he was on the previous seasons. So? Like, who gives a fuck? What is it? What's that gonna do anything? Well, he's looking for Ciri. And? Like, what's that gotta do anything? He's proven himself to the king so he can go and look for her again. And? What the fuck? So what?
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
And it's like, why should I care about this for this character when this character was no one that I needed to care about in the first place? It's so unbelievably dumb that they would make something so unbelievably convoluted and bloated for no reason other than the fact to just try and copy Game of Thrones. And it's like, but you're not that. And it's like, and I have to keep reiterating that because that's how much it just kept pressing on that that's what it was trying to go for. That's the general consensus that was reached upon writing this series, was that we wanted to be Game of Thrones, but gayer and more levity with a little bit of monsters hither and thither. But it's not. It's The Witcher. Just be The Witcher. There's a reason people like that series. So just do that series. Hell, even The Witcher's a copy of another series, and it's like, good lord, like, hell, you could have just did that if you wanted to be so much different from The Witcher, yet similar. The Witcher is a copy of a series. Like, seriously, look it up. It's funny what happened, but what happened, and, worlds turn. Oh man, people out there are crazy. So with that, I'm gonna just end it here. The season was boring. It was one of those borings to where it was like, this does not confirm watching it from the beginning. There's nothing that essentially would be like, okay, this is like, it gets good at this point. You know, similar to, again, Game of Thrones, which to me picked up exponentially after the end of the first season, because of what happens. But realistically, it's just like, and it just kept driving forward, being this interesting and unique show, you know, up until a certain point.
What do you mean by that?
Depending on how you felt when you were watching it, how you felt, that's all up to you. I ain't judging. I ain't judging. But how you felt. But essentially, there's nothing in The Witcher currently that warrants that. I can't think of one redeeming factor aside from Henry Cavill's acting as the character that honestly warrants watching it at any point in time. The first season is a bust. You have just, you know, some moments of levity, but it's not enough to actually bring in some general interest. Hell, even the songs that they keep trying to push in each season from is it Yaskovan? I cannot remember. Dandelion. The songs from him, you know, the one who makes the music, if you don't know. But I just know him as Dandelion. I like Dandelion more. I already said that. But the songs from him that was done on the first season, which actually were generally really good, they keep pushing, and then in no previous seasons that they have any of them that were actually worth a damn anymore. So it's like, well, you're trying to capture that lightning in the bottle that you got in the first season, but because of that, you're pushing for some shit that ain't necessary. And you're convoluting your own shit for nothing again. And like I said, it's so unapologetically bad that you would have each season basically make up for whatever failed bullshit that was brought up in a previous season, and it'd be done badly while then making brand new mistakes all over again. Much like how the whole Ciri Yennefer thing within this season then rolled over into essentially just a small little conversation with Ciri and Yennefer talking, and Ciri being like, well, you tried to kill me, and then Yennefer being like, my bad. And just Ciri like, I love you forever now. It's so stupid. It is so stupid. It's like, it's so bad. But again, there's nothing that warrants, hey, look at it. Or, you know, like, hey, let's you know, like you should look into what you should watch The Witcher. You should look into it. It's a pretty interesting series. If you like the whole fantasy element, someone who happens to be a fan of like twisted versions of fairy tales and things like that. All of this stuff that generally might be an intriguing factor within The Witcher, which you got in small pieces throughout each season, it's not enough to be like, hey, you should waste your time looking at this and getting invested into it. Nah, it's not worth it. It ain't. It just ain't a good show, and that's gonna be the end of my review. So, yeah, The Witcher 3, I have to say it's not good. I did not like it. It is boring as hell, and it was just so difficult to even finish. But hey, you know, take that for what you will. But this has been another episode of Fun with Flame. I've been your host, Danieltheflame, and as always, good people. Hope you had fun. Hey, real quick, make sure you check any of the links down below if you want to see any of the stuff that I'm involved with. This includes more episodes of my podcast, as well as a comic book that I'm working on with my buddies over at These Guys.